The moment she walked through the cafe door, I forgot how to breathe. I had spent the entire morning telling myself that this blind date was just coffee, nothing more. But when I saw her standing beneath the warm pendant lights, smiling nervously as she searched the room, one thought hit me so hard that I almost stood up and walked away. That can't be her. Not because she looked different from her picture, but because she looked exactly like someone I had spent years trying to forget. Before we get into the story, if you believe that kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances can change a person's life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep sharing stories about the moments that remind us there is still goodness in the world. My name is Nathaniel, and at 34, I had become surprisingly good at keeping people at a distance. I worked as an assistant manager at a small cafe in Portland, Oregon, and most people who knew me would have described me as dependable, polite, and impossible to get close to. 3 years earlier, I had lost my younger brother Caleb after a long illness, and although time had softened the sharpest edges of grief, it had also changed the way I looked at relationships. I stopped making plans. I stopped expecting good things to stay. When my friend Marcus insisted that I meet his cousin, Rachel, I agreed mostly because I was tired of hearing him tell me that hiding behind work was not a life. I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early and chose a table near the window. Rain had washed the streets clean that morning, and sunlight was finally beginning to break through the clouds. I kept checking my phone, pretending not to care. Then, the door opened, and she walked in. Rachel was wearing a simple blue dress, carrying a small cream-colored handbag, and smiling with the kind of nervous warmth that made the entire room seem quieter. But it wasn't her appearance that stopped me. It was the tiny silver cross around her neck. Caleb had owned one almost identical to it. I stared too long and she noticed. Instead of looking offended, she smiled and walked toward me. She apologized for being nervous and admitted she had almost turned around twice before entering. Somehow, that made me laugh. Within minutes, the awkwardness disappeared. We talked about ordinary things at first: coffee, work, favorite places in Portland, the strange habit of collecting books we never finished. But gradually, the conversation became deeper. Rachel told me she volunteered twice a month at a community food pantry because her mother had once depended on one after losing her job. She said that experience had taught her something simple. People rarely need someone to fix their entire life. Sometimes they just need someone willing to sit beside them while they figure out the next step. Those words stayed with me because they sounded like something Caleb used to say. And suddenly, I understood why her face had felt strangely familiar. Not because I had seen her before, but because she carried the same quiet kindness I had associated with my brother. Our date lasted nearly 3 hours. Before leaving, Rachel mentioned that she had a habit of leaving one handwritten note inside every book she donated, hoping the next reader would discover it at the right moment. I smiled and asked what she would write in mine. She thought for a moment and said she would probably write, "Don't let grief convince you that your story is finished." I didn't tell her how much those words hurt. I didn't tell her that I had spent 3 years doing exactly that. Over the next few weeks, Rachel became part of my life slowly, without forcing her way into it. She never asked me to stop missing Caleb. She never treated grief like a problem that needed solving. Instead, she helped me remember the parts of him that had made me laugh. One Saturday, she convinced me to join her at the food pantry. I expected to feel uncomfortable, but watching volunteers pack groceries for families made something inside me shift. For the first time in years, I felt useful in a way that had nothing to do with earning money or proving myself. Then came the evening that changed everything. Rachel told me she was considering moving to Colorado for a new job. My old fear returned instantly. I wanted to tell her not to go. I wanted to protect myself from losing someone again. But instead, I finally understood what Caleb's life had been trying to teach me. Loving someone wasn't a guarantee that they would stay. It was a choice to be grateful for the time they were given. I told Rachel I would miss her if she left, but I would never ask her to make her world smaller just to keep me comfortable. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled through tears and told me she had already turned down the job. Not because of me, she explained, but because the community center where she volunteered had offered her a position leading their outreach program. Months later, we returned to the same cafe where we had met. Rachel placed a book on the table between us. Inside was a handwritten note. It said, "Sometimes the person you meet by chance is the answer to a prayer you were too tired to pray." I looked at her and realized I hadn't fallen for her because she reminded me of someone I had lost. I had fallen for her because she showed me how to live after loss. She didn't erase my grief. She gave me permission to carry it, while still making room for joy. If this story touched something in your heart, please let us know by liking the video, sharing it with someone who may need a second chance, and subscribing for more stories about hope and human kindness. And before you go, leave a comment telling us this. Have you ever met someone unexpectedly who changed the direction of your life? Your story might be exactly what another person needs to read today. Sometimes, the greatest surprises don't arrive when we are searching for love. Sometimes they arrive when we have almost given up on believing that life can still surprise us. Nathaniel thought he was walking into a simple blind date, but he walked out with something far more valuable, a reason to open his heart again. And sometimes, that is where a new beginning quietly starts.